Well, Singer David's attorneys pressed the prosecutor, pressed the DA's office, and said that they want a preliminary hearing as soon as possible. They didn't get the hearing yesterday, but what they got were the prosecutors laying out what they say is very damning evidence that proves David is the one who murdered Celeste Rivas-Hernandez.
It is so odd. I haven't seen anything like this because next month there is going to be a preliminary hearing. You don't have to request it. It's automatic that there's a prelim. So the prosecution doesn't have to say, we're going to lay out what we're going to show in the preliminary hearing. You just do it. And they laid out their case in a document that they filed called the prosecution's preliminary hearing brief, which I've never seen, but for whatever reason, they wanted to lay out all the evidence they had.
They laid out from the entire timeline from when David and Celeste first met, when she was 11 years old, right through him leaving his car on the street with her remains in that car.
So let's go through it.
Top to bottom. They say that the crucial part as it relates to the murder is that they say in November of 2024, they broke up. Celeste and David broke up. They were still in contact with each other, but they were broken up, and it seems like she was mostly back home in Lake Elsinore. Then on April 22nd of 2025, they get into a fight, and the prosecutors say they have this all in text. A huge fight where she is jealous about the fact that David is seeing other women, and she threatens him and says she's basically threatening to go public and reveal the fact that they have been in a sexual relationship,
which
that he has been having sex with a minor.
Which he says is going to ruin his career.
Right.
And so that is for the prosecution's view, that's the trigger for what comes next.
Because the other part of it is that on the 25th, he had his first album coming out. So, fight on the 22nd, 23rd, he sends an Uber to go pick her up in Lake Elsinore. The Uber picks her up at 8:40 p.m., gets to David's house at about 10:10 p.m. She gets dropped off. This is the moment where prosecutors say, as they described it, he is lying in wait in his home because they believe that when she walked in the door, very shortly after that, he stabs her, cuts her, stabs her, and watches her, as they describe it, watches her bleed out, makes no effort to save her, does not call any emergency services, and watches her die.
Can I just say, I want to stop you on that, because he says, they say he watched her bleed out. That's a very specific thing, but there was nobody in that home, and that's an interesting thing.
It's the one sort of black hole in their story here, because to this point, they've not said there's any witness to that. But at 10:30, interestingly, David starts texting, and they believe Celeste is already dead at 10:30.
Well, they also know the Uber showed up at 10:10.
Right. So and he stabs her, they say, and that she dies. At 10:30, he is texting Celeste's phone saying, "Hey, where are you? When are you getting here?" As if to, and they believe this is the start of
his
cover-up,
yeah.
Right? 1 hour later, he gets in his car and drives north to Santa Barbara County, to a remote area in Santa Barbara County. He is there most of the night. They suspect he's there disposing of some evidence, some of Celeste's belongings. He comes home early in the morning on the 24th, plops down and does an interview with a podcast to promote his album that's coming out the next day. And then things get weird because he starts ordering some things.
Well, this is where it looks really incriminating.
That's right. This is when he starts purchasing items to, according to prosecutors, dismember the body and start to dispose of it. He purchases a shovel from Home Depot that he has delivered via Postmates. He, a few days after that, purchases 2 chainsaws on Amazon. He does so under an alias, another name, Victoria Mendez. They then say a couple days after that, he purchases a body bag, a laundry bag, and an inflatable blue pool. Now, this is what's fascinating about the blue pool is when the body was discovered and it was it was dismembered. There's a note in the autopsy report that there were blue plastic fragments embedded in some of the body parts. The forensics team by the prosecutors has now matched, they say they've matched those blue fragments to the pool that was put down to protect the floor where he was dismembering the body.
So a lot of incriminating evidence as to disposing of the body. So
Never did.
What's going to be interesting here is, the defense is saying whatever he did, he didn't murder her.
Right.
And so that is what is going to be interesting. Are they going to say, yes, he dismembered the body? It's going to be real hard to say no. It's going to be real hard to say no, because why do you have a chainsaw? Why do you have your body bags? Why do you have a shovel? So that's going to be hard, but we don't know how they're going to show reasonable doubt on killing her.
Right. We don't know, but again, all of this that they've laid out seems like they have a mountain of evidence against David. So how in the world will his defense team mount a defense when this ends up in court? Joining us now to discuss this, someone who's been on both sides of the court as a former federal prosecutor and now a criminal defense attorney, Katie Cherkasky. Welcome back to TMZ Live. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So, circumstantial evidence can be enough. Is it enough here?
Well, from what has been released, it sounds like these investigators did a very solid job of connecting all of the dots to this defendant, and it does not look good for him, needless to say. That started with the fact that the body was found in a car registered to him, so that certainly didn't help matters from the defense perspective. But at the end of the day, the prosecutors still have to prove that he was the one that committed these acts beyond a reasonable doubt. And like you said, it's circumstantial. There's not an eyewitness that says, as far as we know, that they saw this. However, the prosecutors have released very specific details that seems to indicate that they have put together a very detailed story, including very specific dates and incidents and Amazon orders that have brought it to this point where it looks like he might be backed up against the wall. But of course, there's always going to be a defense raised in any case.
Right. I mean, it seems what they have, Katie, is when you read the entire timeline, the entire story as they've laid it out, they have very specific details up to the moment that Celeste arrives at his home on the evening of April 23rd. And then at 11:30 on April 23rd, they know that he leaves in his car. But in between there, really the only evidence that we know of that they have is what the ME has said, what the medical examiner said, report saying that she was stabbed and that there were 2 wounds in her abdomen that were different from what you would wounds that would be used in dismembering the body. Is that enough? Because they don't have the murder weapon and they haven't really placed that weapon in David's hand, at least from what they've laid out here.
Well, there's a couple of different ways that you can defend a criminal case, or really any case. And one is on the facts, whether they actually can prove up these charges. Is there some sort of alibi? Is there somebody else that was accessing the Amazon account? Right now, all we know is what the prosecution side of the story is. The defense is going to eventually have to put on a case. And so perhaps they have factual rebuttals to some of the evidence. And then on the other side of things, even if there's really bad facts, really bad evidence, it looks like somebody is essentially guilty, there's still very significant procedural issues that can come up. And the defense can try to exploit some of those. So whether the investigation was done properly, whether his constitutional rights were respected throughout, whether there's any issues with the searches or the evidence that they obtained as a result of that. Those are all very ripe issues that the prosecution has to be very careful in any case to not step into, because then a case can be kicked or something can happen to reduce it, even though factually it's incredibly damning.
But we will see when David's side starts their defense. Katie, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.